My sister named her child Isis, and when I criticized her choice, she accused me of being judgmental. Hi everyone, welcome to Story Nest. Don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps so much and ensures you don't miss any of our stories. The day my sister told me the name she and her husband had chosen for their newborn daughter, I remember feeling a rush of confusion. It was supposed to be a happy moment, right? Her first child, something she had been dreaming of for years. But when she said it, all I could think was, are you serious? Isis, she said, her face lighting up with excitement. We chose it because it's the name of the Egyptian goddess. She was a symbol of strength and motherhood, and we just love the meaning behind it. I stared at her for a moment, blinking rapidly as I tried to wrap my head around it. I had heard the name many times before, sure, but never in the context of something so personal, so close to home. And then it hit me like a slap in the face, the terrorist group. I couldn't help it. The name had taken on an entirely new, much darker meaning in recent years. When you heard ISIS, now you thought of terror, devastation, and endless news reports of violence. How could she not see that? I knew it wasn't my place to dictate what she should name her child, but I had to say something. I had to at least voice my concerns. So I hesitated, taking a deep breath before speaking. Look, I started carefully, trying to be gentle. I know the name is tied to a goddess, but it's also associated with a terrorist organization. I'm just thinking about how it could affect her later. Kids can be cruel, and once she starts school, well, I just don't want her to get bullied or teased because of it. I thought I was being reasonable, trying to protect my niece from potential future ridicule. I was worried about her. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I could feel the shift in the air. My sister's smile faltered, and her eyes narrowed in an instant. Are you seriously going to criticize me for the name I chose for my daughter? She snapped, her voice rising with frustration. This is my decision, not yours. I'm not asking for your opinion on every little thing in my life. I was taken aback by her reaction. All I'd done was express a concern, one that I felt was valid, considering the world we live in. But suddenly, I was the bad guy. The atmosphere that had been light and happy moments ago was now thick with tension. I wasn't trying to tell you what to do, I said, my own frustration creeping in. I'm just worried about what might happen to her when she gets older. She crossed her arms and took a step back, her tone icy. You don't get to control everything. Her name is my choice, and that's final. I could feel my cheeks flush with embarrassment. I had clearly crossed a line. She wasn't hearing me, and I wasn't backing down. The whole conversation had spiraled out of control so quickly that it left me reeling. I hadn't meant to upset her. My intention was never to attack, only to offer my thoughts out of care. But there it was. The conversation was over, and I was left standing there, feeling like the bad guy, wondering if I had overstepped. The days that followed felt like an emotional hangover. I couldn't stop replaying the argument in my head, dissecting every word, wondering if I had been too harsh or insensitive. My sister and I had always had a close bond, but this was different. There was a wall between us now, a divide that I couldn't ignore. Every time I texted or called, she responded with curt, one-word replies. I'd ask how the baby was doing, and she'd give me a simple, fine. It was like we were strangers again, and I couldn't understand why she was shutting me out so completely. I started doubting myself. Maybe I had been too judgmental. I wasn't trying to be rude. All I wanted was to help, to protect my niece from something that seemed obvious to me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. After all, it was her choice, right? The guilt started eating at me. I wondered if my sister thought I was trying to control her life, dictate her choices. But that wasn't it. Not at all. I couldn't deny that the name had unsettled me, but it wasn't like I was trying to take away her right to name her own child. I just wanted to voice my concern, to make sure she had thought of everything. But now, it felt like I'd made everything worse. The thing that stung the most was how quickly she dismissed me. How could she accuse me of being judgmental when all I was doing was offering a simple perspective? I wasn't calling her a bad parent or saying she didn't know what she was doing. but in her eyes, that's how it seemed. I hadn't expected her to agree with me, but I had hoped she'd at least appreciate that I was coming from a place of love. But instead, she made me feel like the worst kind of meddling relative. A week later, I got a call from my mom. I braced myself for the inevitable, knowing she'd somehow be involved in all of this. "Your sister is really upset," Mom said softly. "She thinks you're trying to tell her how to raise her child." I felt my stomach drop. I couldn't believe this was happening. I wasn't trying to tell her how to raise her child. I just thought the name might cause problems. "Kids can be cruel, Mom. You know how kids are." "I know, honey," Mom sighed. "But maybe you should have just kept it to yourself. She's really sensitive right now, and it's hard for her. She's a new mom, and she doesn't need this stress." The word stung, but I knew my mom was right in a way. It wasn't the time for a debate over a name. I should have been more thoughtful about how I brought it up. But the fact that I was being portrayed as the one who had caused all this trouble, it felt wrong. I wasn't the villain here. As the days turned into weeks, I kept wondering if there was any way to fix this. Could I apologize? Would that make a difference? Or would it make me look like I was admitting I was wrong, when I didn't think I was? I didn't want to give in completely, but I also didn't want to lose my sister over something that could have been avoided with a little more tact. But as much as I wrestled with the decision, part of me knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let this fester between us. After days of feeling like I was walking on eggshells, I finally decided I had to reach out to my sister. It was the right thing to do, even if I wasn't sure how to approach it. I wasn't going to apologize for my concern, because in my heart, I still believed I had a point, but I had to make her see that I wasn't trying to attack her or her choices. I wasn't trying to make her feel like a bad mother. So I drafted a message to her, taking my time to choose the right words. I wanted to make sure I wasn't coming across as defensive or dismissive of her feelings. I wanted to acknowledge her frustration and apologize for the way things had gone down. "Hey, I know things have been tense between us lately, and I just wanted to reach out. I'm really sorry for how I handled our conversation about the name. I didn't mean to make you feel like I was criticizing you as a parent or trying to control your decisions. I was just concerned because I know how kids can be, and I wanted to make sure you'd thought about the potential for teasing or bullying. I love you, and I just want what's best for you and the baby. I hope you can understand where I'm coming from." I stared at the message for a long time before finally hitting send. My heart pounded as I waited for her reply, the anticipation gnawing at me. I needed this to go well. I needed her to know I wasn't attacking her. I wasn't trying to make her feel like she was wrong for choosing the name. But when the message went unread for hours, then days, my anxiety started to bubble up. It was like she had completely shut me out, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was my fault. I couldn't just wait forever for her to come around. But if I pushed her too hard, would I just make everything worse? I gave her space, hoping she would reach out on her own. Days passed, and still, nothing. It wasn't until a week later that I got a response, but it wasn't exactly the apology I was hoping for. "I appreciate that you're sorry, but I'm still really upset with you. I don't need you to tell me how to raise my child, and I'm done having this conversation. Please respect my decision." I read the message over and over, my stomach sinking lower with each glance. It wasn't the resolution I wanted. There was no acknowledgement of the fact that I had only been concerned for her daughter, no sign that she understood where I was coming from. It felt like an emotional wall had been put up, and I was stuck on the outside. I wanted to scream in frustration. I had apologized. I had tried to make amends, but it didn't seem to matter. My sister still felt like I had overstepped, like I had done something unforgivable. I wanted to fight for her, for the relationship we had, but I also didn't want to push too hard. How could I fix this? Could anything repair the rift between us? But as the days dragged on, I began to realize that some wounds take time to heal. Sometimes, a simple apology wasn't enough to bridge the gap. Weeks passed, and I still didn't know where my relationship with my sister stood. It was like we were in this strange limbo. She was still distant, still hurt by what I'd said, and I was walking on eggshells, trying not to make things worse. Every time I reached out, I was met with short, polite responses that carried the weight of unresolved tension between us. I started second-guessing everything. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. Maybe I should have just accepted her choice without question. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been right to be concerned. It wasn't about the name itself, it was about how the world would see it. Would my niece face years of teasing? Would she have to grow up with that shadow hanging over her head? One evening, a few weeks after I'd sent my final message, I was sitting at home when I got an unexpected call. It was my sister. My heart jumped into my throat as I answered. Hello? There was a long pause on the other end before she spoke, her voice quieter than I was used to hearing it. Hey, she said, almost hesitantly. Can we talk? I was taken aback. She wanted to talk? After everything? I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course. What's up? I've been thinking a lot about everything, she said, her words coming slowly, like she was treading carefully through delicate waters. I know I blew up at you. I was upset, and I let my emotions take over. You were trying to help, and I didn't see that at the time. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a knot in my chest. This wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was something. She was reaching out. She was acknowledging that there was more to the situation than just her anger. I'm sorry, too, I said, my voice softer now. I shouldn't have pushed so hard. I just care about you and the baby. I didn't mean to make it feel like I was attacking your choices. I was just trying to protect her. I know, she replied. I get it now. I just felt like you were criticizing me as a mom, and I didn't know how to handle that. But you weren't. I overreacted. We both fell silent for a moment, the weight of everything we had said and done hanging in the air between us. But in that silence, something shifted. It felt like the first real step toward healing. Do you still want to meet her? She asked after a pause, her tone now a little lighter. The baby? I mean, you're her aunt. She needs to know you. I couldn't stop the smile from creeping onto my face. Of course. I'd love to meet her. And just like that, I felt a sense of hope flicker back to life. This wasn't over. We weren't done. My sister and we still had a lot to figure out, but this was a start. Maybe things wouldn't be perfect immediately, but the walls that had been built between us were finally starting to come down. It was going to take time, but I was willing to put in the effort. We were family. And no name, no argument, no difference in opinion would ever change that.